You think you are tough. You go to the gym. You eat well. You handle stress, cold weather, long hours. You have survived things that would have broken other people. But if you were dropped, right now, exactly as you are, into the world as it existed 100 million years ago, you would be dead before sunset. Not maybe, not probably, certainly. The Mesozoic era is not a place your body was built for. And the real reason why is far stranger than you think. Start with the air. You breathe oxygen every second of your life without thinking about it. You assume the air is just air. But the atmosphere during the Cretaceous period, the last chapter of the dinosaur age, had oxygen levels hovering around 30% compared to the 21% you are breathing right now. That sounds like more oxygen would be good. It is not. At those concentrations, your body would begin to experience oxygen toxicity. Your lungs would fill with fluid. Your vision would blur. Seizures would follow. Researchers like Robert Berner at Yale spent decades modeling ancient atmospheric chemistry, and what he found suggests that the air itself would begin to poison you within hours of arrival. The world that built the dinosaurs was not built for you. But let us say your body somehow adapted to the air overnight. Let us give you that. There is still the heat. The Cretaceous was one of the warmest periods in Earth's entire history. There were no polar ice caps. Sea levels were dramatically higher. Average global temperatures ran 8 to 10 degrees Celsius hotter than today. The tropics, where much of Cretaceous life thrived, were not merely warm. They were zones of extreme wet heat, the kind that kills unprepared humans through hyperthermia and dehydration within a single day of exposure. Your sweat glands, your cooling system, your thermoregulation, none of it was designed for sustained heat at those levels without shelter, without water filtration, without electrolyte replacement. You would overheat. Your core temperature would climb. And in a world with no shade structure you built yourself, and no clean water source you could trust, there is almost no path to survival. Paleoclimatologist Christopher Scotese has spent years reconstructing ancient climate maps, and his work makes clear that the Cretaceous was not a warmer version of today. It was a fundamentally different thermal regime, one that your mammalian physiology would find catastrophic. Now here is where it gets interesting. Because there were mammals alive during the dinosaur age. Your ancestors were there. They existed alongside Tyrannosaurus rex, alongside Triceratops, alongside the massive long-necked sauropods that shook the ground when they walked. Your lineage did not appear after the dinosaurs. It ran beneath their feet for over 100 million years. But those early mammals were not you. They were small, nocturnal, hidden. They weighed a few grams. They ate insects in the dark. They lived in burrows. They survived not by being strong, but by being invisible, by staying out of the light, by never competing directly with the animals that dominated every food chain on the planet. You, by contrast, are enormous by the standards of Cretaceous mammals. You are slow, you are loud, you radiate heat. You smell of everything you have eaten. You are, from the perspective of every predator in that world, a large, warm, smelly, slow-moving meal. Think about what was actually hunting in the Cretaceous. Not just T-Rex, which most people picture. T-Rex lived only at the very end of the Cretaceous, in the last 2 million years before the asteroid hit. But for the 80 million years before that, the apex predators were no less terrifying. Spinosaurus, the largest carnivorous dinosaur ever discovered, stretched up to 15 meters long and hunted both on land and in water. Carcharodontosaurus had teeth the size of steak knives and a skull bigger than a grown human. Allosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Mapusaurus. These animals were not ambush predators waiting to be avoided. They were active hunters with senses tuned to detecting warm-blooded prey. And you are warm-blooded. Your body temperature is a beacon. Paleontologist Paul Sereno, who has excavated some of the most significant predator fossils ever found, has described these animals not as lumbering movie monsters, but as highly optimized killing machines with sophisticated sensory systems, strong pack or social behaviors in some species, and stamina that rivaled modern large predators. You would not outrun them. A human top speed of roughly 45 kilometers per hour is not competitive with an animal built entirely around the act of catching prey. Your endurance means nothing when the predator chasing you does not tire in the time frame that matters. But predators are only part of the problem. The herbivores are just as dangerous. You may think of plant-eating dinosaurs as gentle giants. They were not gentle. A triceratops weighed up to 12,000 kilograms and had 3 horns, the largest of which exceeded a meter in length. An ankylosaurus carried a club of solid bone at the end of its tail capable of breaking the legs of a T-Rex. Sauropods, the long-necked giants, could reach 70 metric tons. A single accidental step from an animal that size would end your life without the creature even noticing you existed. And then there are the insects. The Cretaceous was the era in which flowering plants first exploded across the planet, and with them came an insect diversity unlike anything alive today. Giant dragonfly relatives had already existed in earlier periods. The Cretaceous brought with it biting flies, early mosquito relatives, parasitic wasps, and an entire ecosystem of invertebrates carrying pathogens your immune system had never encountered and had no defenses against. Your modern immune system is calibrated to threats that evolved alongside your ancestors over millions of years. The microbial world of 100 million years ago is essentially an alien landscape for your biology. A single bite from the wrong insect, a single drink from an unfiltered water source, and your body would begin fighting a war it was never trained for. Geologist Walter Alvarez, who alongside his father, Luis Alvarez, helped establish the asteroid impact theory for the dinosaur extinction, once described the Cretaceous as a world operating under entirely different rules. The food chains were different. The chemistry was different. The pressures were different. Everything alive in that world had been shaped by 200 million years of evolution under conditions that had nothing to do with producing you. And that is the counterintuitive heart of this. You did not descend from the winners of the Mesozoic. You descend from the survivors. The small, the hidden, the nocturnal creatures that never challenged the dominant order. Your ancestors' entire strategy was to be overlooked, to be forgotten, to take up so little space that the giants never noticed them. Every trait you now carry, your sharp senses, your ability to regulate body temperature, your complex social cognition, your planning and problem solving. These were not forged in open combat with dinosaurs. They were forged in the shadows at the edge of a world that belonged entirely to something else. There is something humbling about that. You look at your hands. You look at your ability to build cities and launch rockets and write language and cross oceans. And all of it, every ounce of your capability, traces back to a creature the size of a shrew, hiding in the dark, waiting for a world it could never have imagined to finally open up. The asteroid hit 66 million years ago. 3/4 of all species on Earth went extinct. The skies went dark. The food chains collapsed. The giants starved. And in the rubble, in the cold and the dark, the small warm things that had always lived in the margins finally had room to become something else. They became you. So when you think about whether you could have survived the dinosaur age, the answer is no. You could not. But something in your bloodline already survived it by being exactly small enough, exactly quiet enough, exactly invisible enough to make it through. And the next time you feel overlooked or underestimated or pushed to the edges of something that seems to belong to bigger, louder things, remember that your entire existence is proof that the margins are sometimes exactly where the future gets made. You think you are tough, and in the world that actually made you, you were.